we knew daycare was never an option for us for so many reasons, different family values, and also we didn't want somebody else looking after our children.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't even come down to us not trusting them. There's absolutely a certain element of that, especially in this digital day and age, but it's not like the one. It was, they're our babies.
Yeah.
We want to be with them. We want to help them. We want to nurture them. We want them to know that at least one of their parents can be with them and help them in this really tender age. These systems are just trying to make you participate in a series of things to get certain outcomes potentially. And we've all just kind of been ticking boxes and not consciously going, but why do they want us to do all these things? I really honour everyone who's taken on board this parenting role, because it is huge. And, I never want people to see it as one person coming above another person, or thinking that one answer is all the right answers. All of these things that I think can cause so much divide. Like, wow, there's a word, isn't it? Divide.
Yeah.
I think anybody that's a parent that's actively parenting, and that can come down to any parent that questions, am I doing a good job? That's consciousness. That's them actively trying to do the best job that they personally can, because everyone's circumstances are different. I just think it's really important that people don't see it as people thinking they're doing better. When Lockie and I have the utmost respect for everyone's personal choices on their life journey, not just parenting journey. But I feel very much so on their parenting journey, because I feel like when it comes to parenting, people really want to point the finger. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And I think this really kind of comes back down to what you're trying to achieve, in the sense that if we actually all just stand back and really take an objective look at all the things that we've been presented with from the start of our time, there's a better way, right?
Yeah,
so
100%. Yeah.
We don't have all the answers. Lockie and I will never have all the answers. What we're doing as parents objectively is stepping back, and we're looking at these things in place, these systems in place that are very easily accessible to all of us, and we're evaluating them as parents, and we're evaluating them with the current times, and we're evaluating them from our own personal experiences, and we're going, well, is there a better way? From what we experience to the world we live in now, to the different challenges we're facing, looking at our own children and them as a whole, is there a better way that we can approach whatever we choose to do with our family unit moving forward? And that's kind of the interview over.
So you're trying to do and is it really about, like, when you know what's going on, you kind of know, you might not know what to do, but you're kind of getting a gist of what not to do, because you know enough to understand, like, what's not working and what has happened in the past. So is that
exactly? Yeah, so if you really break it down and you look at your own personal experiences, there's these pivotal, we go back to, like, even just schooling, for example. For myself and for Lachlan, even for my mother, funnily enough, there's these pivotal moments that I remember her talking about. My mum was born in 1947, so that makes her 76 this year, I think. So, totally different time in the world, you know what I mean? And I still remember these key stories. Mum still would, if I got her on here, she wouldn't shut up about them, right? These key stories about her experience with the education system, right? And then I look at my own experiences with the education system. Now, I've had a really big experience in the education system, in the sense that I went to a cared facility as such at the age of 4 in Victoria. I then went to primary school. So I think that was like, in Victoria, it's like kindergarten when you're 4, and then you go into prep. And so then I was in from prep to grade 5 in Victoria. And then I went to the New South Wales system, which is totally different again.
Okay.
And then I went to the ACT systems for year 11 and 12, which is classified as college, which is a totally different sector broken away from high school. And then I've gone to 2 different universities in 2 different states and studied 2 totally different things. So I've been through a lot of different education systems as such. And then I went to another different education system on the side, a dance school. So that's another education system.
Yeah.
Just with the arts as such. So I feel like I've had a really broad perspective and experience.
Was there a common theme between all the different states and systems?
It was just every single one was built on their own set of rules. Now, I understand that they all have to be built on a set of rules and all of that stuff because they've all got a set of objectives, right? But once again, that's not taking into consideration. You even look at something more specialized, full-time dancing, that's not taking into consideration that individual journey is and their set of circumstances versus the other children. So, it was just based on them. It was never based on the children as such or the adolescent.
Yeah, they're just like, this is how we teach dance. This is the way we do it, and every child there has to do it this way, regardless of who you are, how you learn, what your gifts are.
Correct. For this certain outcome.
Yeah.
Right? I never really remember sitting down and talking about what I personally wanted that outcome to be. Maybe we did, okay? I'll say that just to cover myself. Maybe we did, but it definitely wasn't impactful enough to make it where I remember that. Do you know what I mean? I don't remember that key moment.
Yeah. Because it shouldn't be a key moment, really. Ideally, it'd be an ongoing thing that they would.
Right? Isn't that the goal?
Designing for you versus, just one conversation.
Yeah. So, I just think that, I suppose kindergarten and preschool and all of that stuff is the main thing I feel is most relevant to me at the moment as a parent. I have a 4-year-old and a 2.5-year-old, and they're at home full time with me. I 1,000,000% stepped away from my career. It is potentially dissipated, but then it hasn't. You know what I mean? It's just, it's there, it's lingering. Whatever I want to make of that one day, if I ever do. The main focus for me is at the moment is my children and looking at them at this very, very, very small, sacred amount of time I get with them as babies to help them go into their life one day as independent thinkers, confident children, confident adolescents, confident adults, maybe parents one day, where then they get to choose how to navigate what they pursue.
Let's rewind a little bit. What made you really consciously put your kids first? Because I know it sounds like such a normal thing to say, like, of course you put your kids first, but we really, in society, we don't.
We don't.
For some people, but we actually don't.
Yeah, we don't. And this is where people are going to go, they were going to want to put me in a box, it must be different for you, or you must have a lot of help. Or first of all, we don't have any help. We don't have any relatives close by. We've never had any help. One thing Lockie and I actually knew when we had children was we were never going to get the help. We actually didn't need the help. We weren't having children to get the help. We were choosing to have children because we wanted to have children. Okay? If we hired help, that's different. But we, in-home help or whatever, that's different. But we never we knew we were never going to have that community for ourselves with our family structure. My mum is a loving grandmother, but she doesn't have the ability to look after our young children. Lockie's mother recently passed away young, and prior to that, she was not well. You know what I mean? She was still an active grandmother, but it wasn't an option. And we've also chosen to live far away. We have chosen to live far away from our family, which means we don't have that accessibility, and that's okay. We've chosen this for other reasons. So I feel like when we became parents, we would we knew we weren't going to get the help, right? We never expected the help. But then you kind of get faced with the holy hell, we've got to do this. You know what I mean? And it's like, wow, this never stops. So I think once you kind of get over that shock of it's never going to stop, ever, I think that's where you then get to navigate the choices you get to make and how you potentially can outsource assistance, if that's how you want to see it, whether it's with a grandmother or a family member or a close friend or a daycare facility, whatever that may be for you. For us, we knew daycare was never an option for us for so many reasons, different family values, and also we didn't want somebody else looking after our children.
Mhm.
It doesn't even come down to us not trusting them. There's absolutely a certain element of that, especially in this digital day and age, but it's not like the one. It was, they're our babies.
Yeah.
We want to be with them. We want to help them. We want to nurture them. We want them to know that at least one of their parents can be with them and help them in this really tender age. Because one day, and sooner than later, there'll be a time when they don't want us by their side. So we get this really small amount of precious time where we kind of get to make the biggest impact and imprint on our children that we ever will.
Which they say is the first 7 years, isn't it?
Correct. But that's our perspective. Okay. So
what got you to that perspective, Sheree? Like, because that's I know sometimes, like, I don't know, it sounds kind of common sensey, but it's really not, because most people don't take the time to even have these conversations before having kids and going, why are we having them? What does our life look like? Like, you seem to have had all those conversations. So
I actually thought my kids would go to daycare a couple of days a week, right? Just so I'd get a break, literally. Okay.
Yeah.
It's literally what it felt like. You know, if I honestly, if I look back, that was what was going to happen. We knew we didn't want them there before 2. We hadn't set anything in stone. These were loose conversations. But realistically, you know, I envisaged that at least 1 or 2 days a week, when the children were an age and where we felt comfortable, the kids would go off for, you know, socialization, and the mummy could do, I don't know what I'd do, but whatever I needed to do. So that's how we actually thought it would be like. It wasn't until we had these children, Hunter and Lyra, by the way, that I suppose so many different things came into play. Our own personal experience as children, with our own families growing up and the different environments we both grew up with, which were quite different. Lockie and I were actually very different in the home environments we grew up in. Understanding the realities of what we had to participate in to potentially send them to daycare full time. And those realities became more apparent after, unfortunately, a series of really traumatic birth experiences with my son, who's the eldest of our children, and just really stepping back after those experiences and realizing the systems we were working in did not align with our moral values, our family values, our health belief system, just so much. And then it just kind of fed through every other system. You stand back and you look at, you know, the child immunisation schedule, if you look at the birthing system in hospitals, if you look at the statistics of birthings, like of birth in hospitals compared to 10 years ago, the schooling system, the daycare system, if you actually break down all these things, you don't actually have to break them down that much, to be totally honest.
You just have to go looking for it.
You just have to look at a few big snippets, some big key information things. It actually kind of puts this really big puzzle together, and you kind of go, these systems are just trying to make you participate in a series of things to get certain outcomes potentially. And we've all just kind of been ticking boxes and not consciously going, but why do they want us to do all these things? You know what I mean? So I think it was just Lockie and I, being the individuals we are, quite strong characters. We've both led very, you know, colourful lives, some would say. Ex-boss have said that to me. I'll never forget it. She was a real cow. Came from a colourful
I've done
life.
some stuff.
What does that even mean? So what, you've come from a bland life, you know? I'm glad my life has been colourful, you know? So ridiculous. What, you're black and white, are you? So we've you know, these colourful lives we've led, I suppose. We've never really been people that actively try and tick boxes as such. Like, oh, I suppose you know, we better get married now, or we're not married, you know, we haven't bought a house, we are going to buy that. It's just that with the choices we've made, these things we haven't actually been in the position in our minds to want to do that until now, funnily enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in a way, it's the best thing ever because we just have a clearer perspective of actually what we want. Do you know what I mean? And without kind of locking ourselves into all these really big decisions like that, we've had this level of flexibility, I suppose. We've got the biggest decision, that's the kids. But at the moment, we have this flexibility to make these other choices that, you know, other people might feel more contracted kind of into, that they can't, you know, say up and move. You know, it's a bigger task.
Does that come down to priorities? Because if we're talking about priorities, if you've put your kids as the number one priority and actively participate and consciously make decisions and choices around that, is that why you can be flexible with the rest because you know what's number one?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, once again, that's my perspective. Because some people's priority is, you know, having that house at an early age and all of that. Lockie and I didn't meet until we were later in life. I was like 31. I had Hunter at 36, okay? Lockie's a few years older than me. We would have been more than able to buy a house, you know, a long time ago. We didn't know where we wanted to be, and it just wasn't our priority at that time. And then we had kids for so many reasons. Like we lost one family income, so we went down to a single family income. So straight away, you know, you're not attractive to banks and all of that stuff unless you've got $2 million in the bank, which we don't, clearly.
And $2 million coming in every month.
Yeah, who does, right? So, you know, we just knew that like our kids were our priority. So other things, we wanted to make our children our priority and be the type of parents to the best of our ability, because we're still not the best, but we're still learning, you know, we're just giving it a fair old crack. Yeah, we had that flexibility and movement because we kind of said, well, that's all that matters. Like the main thing that matters to us is our family unit, keeping us together, choosing the way we get to help our children grow and nourish them and support them in these youngest years that they'll never get back, that we will also never get back. And all the other stuff can just wait. You know, it can wait. It will get done. Once again, not feeding into that fear of rushing, you know, we've got to get this done. We've got to have it done by now because, you know, blah, 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 blah.
That's part of the programming, isn't it? Because it always makes you like you're never enough. You've never got enough. You're never where you meant to be.
I fight it every day. Don't get me wrong. I literally had the meltdown in my head, not a meltdown, that's the wrong term, but I had that conversation in my head that I actively had to verbalize to Lockie literally last night on the couch, probably because I was sitting back thinking about what we were going to discuss. And I said, I just need to express these things to you, you know, X, Y, Z, because I'm human. And I have these, you know, inverted commas programs built in me, but I also want to be a certain amount of things for my children to be able to support them. So, you know, it's a constant battle for every aspect of parenting, whether it's socialization, looking down the barrel of homeschooling, God forbid, but I'm going to do it. But I still go, holy hell, you know, wow.
Something we haven't seen. I think it's like that because it's not something we see unless you know someone that's unschooling or homeschooling. You can't be around it and see it, which again is programmed on purpose that we don't see it because then we don't know how to imagine it.
Well, I've actually seen it a lot. That's the funny thing. So this is once again, I know exactly what I'm going in for. And when my kids aren't listening to me when I'm asking them to sit down and eat their breakfast, I'm thinking, how are you ever going to listen to me if I'm trying to actually teach you some stuff? You know what I mean? I'm like, right, how is this actually going to work? You know, in my mind, it's still 2 years away, but I'm always like,
and they change so much in that time, and when they're interested in something, they just gravitate towards it. You don't even need to make them.
Exactly. But that's in my mind, I'm setting myself up for disaster, even though I've committed to it, you know, but that's the constant fight and that's the balance. And this is what I always come back to. If I wasn't having these conversations in my head or with my closest girlfriend, Anna, who's, you know, on the same page as everything as me, or my partner, you know, I say Anna first because she's more available to me because Lockie's always at work and she's a mother and she's a woman. She's actually a school teacher, funnily enough.
And still a school teacher?
Casual. She's single
Wow.
mom.
Yeah.
Had a long break, if you get what I mean. She's just gone back into that realm.
She's allowed back in. She's
Yeah.
allowed back in.
But she's got lots of different other things. But do you know what I mean? This is the balance. So we have these conversations, about, you got to be careful you don't cut your own nose off, that you're balancing it out, because we're not going to get it perfect. What we're trying to do is create the change. So it's going to take a lot of time to even attempt to get it right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's not even about getting it right. I don't even think it's about getting it right. It's just creating something better than what is going on. It doesn't have to be right. It just has to be evolving in a way that is actually for the kids. Like what we have now, the systems we have in place right now are not for children. Like that is blaringly obvious. So anything that you're doing that is for the child is winning.
I heard this, I think it was on one of your chats that you had with one of the children. It was the handwriting thing. They don't handwrite anymore. They only handwrite en masse. Like that to me is mind blowing. The connectivity between the brain and the hand and the way we learn the senses, the form of expression, that's the arts. Handwriting used to be a form of artwork. You should see my artwork, my mother's handwriting. It's incredible.
I was just going to say, one of my friends, she's just probably almost 60, and her handwriting is like calligraphy. It is gorgeous.
Like my mother's. People literally stop if they see a birthday card on the wall, of my mum's. Who wrote that card? And it's like, yeah, I know. It's an art form, and it's not even about it being an art form. Writing a letter used to be a skill. Our kids aren't going to write email letters anymore. They're just going to write an email. Now, obviously, that serves a purpose. I get that. But it comes back to that balance. So what? We're just not going to handwrite anymore. We're not going to teach our children how to write. To me, that is just absurd. And it's something I can't accept and I won't accept. And 1,000,000% my children will be learning how to write for so many reasons, not just type. Because one day the keyboard probably will go and they will just talk into a system and it will automatic, AI will kick in and it will just write for them. But
it goes back to what do the kids want to do? Like if they find that whole process of using their hand to write and making the beautiful letters, like if that's what they want, then it's about them.
Exactly. But the fact that, I just couldn't, so they don't write in English?
No, they type, apparently.
Yeah, when I heard that.
I know, I learned stuff too. I'm like, is this really what's going on?
I literally sit on the fence,
Who would have thought?
Yeah, I literally sit on the fence so many days and I heard that. It was from one of the chats you had with one of the girls. And
Mackenzie.
Yeah, I said to Lucky, do you know this is what's, and he was like, what? I'm so old when I do stuff like that. And he's like, that's insanity. And I'm like, I just can't participate in that,
And they go outside like once a week for an hour for PE, like.
Are you serious? So I can't even handle that because my kids are literally in the neighborhood. They're known as the naked, muddy kids because, we still live, in suburbia on the outskirts of Sydney. We live on the edge of a town, quite a built up area. But we do have a large backyard. But my kids are constantly, in the dirt, in the water, rolling around, doing what kids should do.
Yeah.
Like in my perspective, that to me is being a child.
Well, they're showing you. Like it's not even what you think. It's that they are telling you this is what a child is because they're doing it.
Exactly. If they want to lay in the dirt and roll around, they should be doing it, and they do it. I don't actively say get in the dirt and roll around naked. They do it, because they do it in the cold as well. It's quite astounding, but they want to because it's nature.
I love it. I'm freezing. They're like running into the ocean. My nephew just runs into the ocean. I'm like, how are you doing that? It's so safe. It's like it's amazing, Auntie Bonbon. It's amazing. Like,
exactly.
We so good.
Went last Sunday for Hunter's 4th birthday. It was freezing. And he was laying in the water as the waves crashed over his head. He doesn't like getting his hair wet in the bath, might I add. A warm bath at night. But, he also then said at the end of the trip, he was like, I'm never going to that beach again. It's too cold. I was like, oh, mate, you are going to that beach again. Mark my word. You will be. You'll want to go to that beach again. But,
yeah, totally. You want to. What would you say, like from within, what courageously got you to move in this direction of choosing your kids over having a house, having all the things, what would you say, Craig? Because that's not what we're seeing. So what makes you different?
What's the other choice? Not choosing your kids?
Good point.
I've always said, before I had kids, before I was a mother, I honestly don't envisage myself dying and getting to wherever we get. I'm actually quite emotional even saying this and holding up my resume as such. I mean, look what I did. Look what I did. To me, now as a mother, it would be, look what I did. And I'm not saying you have to self-sacrifice. I believe in a strong balance. Like I've said, I prioritize myself every day. Yes, it has taken a long time to get there. Yes, it doesn't always necessarily look the way I would potentially like it to look, but I also know that it's only for a small amount of time while they're in these younger years where it just has to be like that if I want to prioritize that. So I look after myself every day. I work out every day. I go to the gym. I get that space for myself. They go to a playroom with their friends. They have a great time. They go to different groups where they get to socialize, different schools that we've connected with in communities. Yes, I'm tired, but I don't know any mother that isn't. Whichever angle they're coming from, they're all tired.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I personally couldn't think of anything worse. Now, once again, this is each to their own. Maybe because I haven't found my passion project yet, maybe that's it. I don't know. I personally couldn't imagine juggling children and work and feeling good about both of them, because I know I would have constantly felt like I was letting work down, whatever that may have looked like, whether I was working for somebody, if I was working for myself, and I would have constantly felt like my children were going out with me. So I just had to really think about what just sat well within my heart. I know a lot of successful, very, very successful women who would probably think, I was trying to be some martyr or something by saying this. I'm not. I'm just speaking on my perspective, the family core values that we have decided to live by, that are still flexible. We get to choose these every single day. And it just didn't, for me or Lockie, it didn't feel like a choice. It was actually just our calling.
Once you put the kids first, and you really do put the kids first, the choices they're easier to make. They don't necessarily mean they're easier to live, but
No.
the choices are easier to make because you're like, well, the kids are first. So now.
And I think, that's the funny thing. I think the kids are always first, even if you don't have the opportunity to feel like you're putting them first at the moment. It's whatever angle you come in from. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're always trying to put our kids first, whether that's going to work extra hours or all those things, because ultimately, it's that extra income, the extra security, the comfortability, all those things. But for me, when I really tried to narrow it down for you, it was like thinking about it. It really is these small amount of years we get, and then I'm not saying it's gone. We'll have our children and they will have us for as long as we are here. But it's kind of those first 7 tender years where we really get to nurture them, and most importantly, not make them grow up too fast.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was made grow up too fast due to horrible, horrible circumstances, and it's no one's fault. That's just the journey that my life was on. I have an opportunity to not make my children have to grow up so fast, and I'm not trying to do the white picket fence stuff, and I'm not trying to create the perfect childhood, because I don't think there's such thing. My kids are probably going to hate me one day. Like, I'm a realist. They're probably going to go, Mum, what were you thinking? And I'll be like, oh God, I'm trying really hard, guys. You know what I mean? I'm positive of it because this is the human nature, right? I am a realist. So I'm not trying to be that, that perfect family and blah, blah, blah. We are as real as it comes. We're just trying to really nurture them so they've got the foundational love that is required on this literal entire earth plane to move forward confidently in life with literally every interaction we need to have as humans. You know, love and compassion. If they can't learn that from their parents, they will never learn it. They might learn it later, but there will be huge conflicting moments in their life that will go either way. Now, once again, I have no idea where Alira and Hunter's future lies. That is ultimately up to them, right? Because
So they've got the free choice and their own spirit, their own soul.
that's the reality. But I do believe if we can give them these foundations from that early age, you know, hopefully, and it's not even involving me, it's not about them coming back to us, it's about them coming back to themselves.
Beautiful.
When they're standing there in that moment of complete utter conflict in this noisy, crazy world, they will come back to themselves.
Beautiful.
And they'll be able to listen to themselves and guide themselves, you know, in the path they choose, and not all the other noise that's trying to impact them and persuade them or lead them down the garden path or whatever. And like I said, that could be so disastrous in my mind when I think about the opportunities that will come their way. But you know what? I also did all those things, and you know, you come full circle. You get to choose these things. So I'm not trying to create the perfect child, and I'm not trying to create perfect children. I'm not trying to create the perfect anything. I'm trying to give my children the foundation and the love, so they walk away from my family home one day and they've got it deep in their heart that they actually know that they're going to be okay, and they're strong, and they've got everything that they need in their life themselves to move forward from whatever they find themselves in, without mum and dad beside them, you know, and hopefully without all these conditioning thoughts that keep us really like that in life.
Yeah. And looking to, like, that is so key, because we've been trained to look outside of ourselves for the answer, or look to an authority figure for an answer, like a doctor or a politician or a teacher, instead of we have all the answers within us, we have the knowledge within us. So you even saying that and knowing that is just phenomenal.
That's from my colourful life.
Damn you and your colourful life.
They're my lessons, you know. And so I know how hard it is as a parent. Like, I get it, because I really do. I sit right in the middle, you know, I consider everything. Maybe that's my personality type. I don't know. But I really try and the pros and the cons, you know, I'm the pros and cons list girl, you know, actively write stuff down. When it's a really big decision, right? When it's life altering, like changing direction, I write the list. I found them, you know, I find these lists, you know, in these special books that I've got.
You're deciding to move the family to
big pros and cons list. I've got it in the lounge room. I found it a few weeks ago.
Imagine. That was a big one, to move the family. Would you say that was one of the big ones so far, where you've actually, like a big one so far, that you put the family first, you followed your priorities, you followed your values, and actually did something quite major, moving the family?
Well, you know, I've moved around a lot. We've lived overseas. We've lived in all these different states. We've always been those, you know, those people, right? Before children as a couple, because we like flexibility, okay? So looking from an outside, people that know us really well are absolutely like, oh, they're moving again.
Okay.
Right? It's no biggie, but it is, because it's huge.
Yeah, because you've got kids.
Absolutely. We moved when I was 36 weeks pregnant outside of Melbourne inner city to country Victoria. We were in the thick of COVID, and I was in the hospital system, and I was going into the birth of my second baby. And my first birth, actually the birth was great. It was the stuff that happened afterwards that really shook me to the core, to kind of lead me down certain paths. So I had two babies very close together. Hunter and Alira are only 17 months apart to the day. So I was pregnant with Alira when Hunter was 8 months. We literally went into our first lockdown in Melbourne when Hunter was 8 or 9 months. And I literally conceived Alira and birthed Alira in our second lockdown that went for 11 months. Pregnancy goes for 9 months. So at this point, it was the perfect exposure to the medical system once again. And it was kind of the final kind of information I needed as a pregnant, expecting mother to kind of solidify all the beliefs I'd kind of already got from the first experience, where I was like, I'd only been seen twice, 2 times in 36 weeks for 10 minutes at a time. They didn't want to talk to me about anything but COVID. I had a toddler at home. I was in lockdown. I was heavily pregnant. I had no support network around me because we're all in lockdown, and they didn't really care. So it kind of was like, well, number one, I was like, you don't really need to see me, do you? Because you haven't seen me until 36 weeks.
And you're not stressing out about it. Like, they're not like, oh, we can't see you. They're like,
I've missed all these supposed, visits that I had to have, because I had to bring my toddler and we could all die if he came with us. So I missed all these things because of certain other things, because you're trying to protect me. But I've only seen you twice in 36 weeks. Once at, I think it was maybe like 25 or 26 weeks, and then once at 36 weeks. So it just kind of made me realize I don't actually need you. Like, you're pretty confident this is all going to plan. So all these routine things, like everything I already kind of realized, I was like, well, you just like, yeah, you're telling me this is the truth, because I had a baby 17 months ago and it was very, very different how many times I had to see you, right?
And how they make it feel like you need to do this, you need to have this ultrasound, you need to have this blood test.
Right. And
lives hang in the balance if you don't do it. Lives hang in the balance.
Same hospital, like the exact same hospital, just down the road. And I'm thinking, so what's changed? Like, I understand you're worried that, this could be a life-threatening virus and blah, 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 blah. But I'm pretty confident with the research I've done, I'm going to be okay. And I was at the point where I was like, this is my fate. This is my fate. Like, you know what I mean? There were no vaccines invented, So it's like, what do you want me to do? So, they couldn't pull all these cards. So at 36 weeks, I just said to Lockie, because of the experience with my first baby, Hunter, where he had ended up in the butterfly ward at the NICU in the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne, in the city, they were separating babies and mothers in COVID if children went to NICU, which I would never have allowed. So the fear crept in, even though we knew what Hunter had ended up in there for. Let's not even go there. That's a whole different topic. Me, in a very vulnerable state, already have been exposed to a lot of different things in a really weird way. I was like, I'm not risking this. I'm not risking this. We looked at doing home birth, like a private home birth and all of that. Every midwife, every doula was booked out in Melbourne. I literally told Lockie to watch YouTube videos.
You just work it out for me. Come on. What out?
Literally, I was like, you better start looking at those videos, babe, because I have no idea how to cut the cord. Right? Literally. I was like, you grew up on a farm, you should be fine with this. But the fear came in, and it was, well, hang on, because I do believe in the medical system. I believe medical systems are very much good in actual, real medical emergencies as such, right? So, well, like,
I'm still bored on that, but yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I think it was that vulnerable moment of heavily.
Of course, yeah.
I don't want to die because I've got another baby here. I've got another baby in me. You know what I mean? Like, it was that moment, right? The indoctrination, all those systems, everything fell back into place. So in my head, I was like, I'm happy to go into a hospital room, push this baby out, and then I'm walking. Right? So, and I knew exactly what I needed to do and say and blah, 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 blah. So I was like, we've got to get out of Melbourne. I'm not happy to birth here. And my sister-in-law was a midwife in country Victoria at that time. So I said, I want to birth where she works. So she is there. She is if something goes wrong and they want to separate the baby from me, she's there. She's my advocate in the system. Yeah. Right? Beautiful. So we literally up and left at 36 weeks pregnant and a 16-month old, and moved, like psycho in itself,
This is family first, isn't it? This is really putting family first. It's like, no, we are here for our kids and we will do anything to keep them
because
safe.
I actually knew I couldn't fight the system. If I birthed in Melbourne and something went terribly wrong, or they claimed something terribly went wrong, and they wanted that baby out, they were taking that baby away, and I wouldn't have been with it for however long they chose, because we all had COVID supposedly, right? So I was like, that's not an option. That's not an option. That's not getting written in my lifetime. So that's an option. So we had to make this really drastic decision. And so we did it. And, you know, we really put it out there. You know, people want to call this cuckoo as well, whatever. I don't care. I've been called all these things in my life. You know, we really trust in the universe, and we always trust being provided for. These really big core moments, it really comes down to trust and believing that we're doing these things out of the good intentions, you know, and we're just trying. There was an element of fear. I will never say there wasn't, but it was it wasn't about COVID or all that. It was about the baby and me getting separated, because I literally slept next to Hunter's bedside for 7 nights in a recliner at the Royal Children's Hospital, and literally hadn't left his side when he was there. So I was never going to leave the baby, you know, or let them take it away if they claimed I had COVID or she had COVID or whatever. And I was like, we're going to end up on the news or in jail, quite literally, because no one was going to do that. And Lockie wouldn't have let anyone do that either. So I was like, we actually kind of need to go somewhere where this potentially can work out.
We're going to be in jail.
Yeah, we don't need to end up in jail.
What a world that we live in, that is the reality of what happens, that you as a mother and father do not get to say what happens with your child.
You always do. This is what I've realised, you do. But unfortunately, once again, like I learned with Hunter, when you're in the system and all these things are happening around you, and let's not even talk about COVID, let's just talk about day-to-day medical assistance, because Hunter was born way before COVID. When you're in the system and these things are happening around you and these supposed emergencies are happening around you, if you don't somewhat comply, you're like a negligent parent. You're classified as that.
So you can not comply if there's just a hoo-ha.
Right? But you have to be very careful how you don't comply within the system, if that makes sense. Because otherwise, like, it can get really hectic.
And really, you've got to be completely confident and have this inner knowing that is so fierce, because they will test it.
And I got tested.
They will shame it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, like, they met Mama Lion. So I could tell you so many stories. It's quite astounding, but it's all good, because it makes you stand in your power, right? So we moved 36 weeks. I birthed both of my babies naturally on my due date somehow, because who does that? I have. I know, it's crazy. So I've never got a hospital bag.
They come now.
I've never got a hospital bag packed, because who has their babies on due dates, right? So I literally pack while I'm in active labour. I have babies really quickly too. I birthed Alira on her due date, and in country Victoria, it went really well. The hospital, and you know, I'm talking about the system. I'm not talking about individuals. The hospital staff there.
There's great people within these systems. Yeah,
like such beautiful care of myself and my daughter. However, they're following a set of rules. So then this is where mothers then in these systems go head to head. You know, these poor midwives, because my sister-in-law wasn't there, right? Because it wasn't her shift. She shifted on, like, due to come the next morning, which she did. If you're just not going to tick boxes, once again, you're almost ear-tagged. So, you know, you've got to have the power and the strength and the voice and the self-belief. And you know, this can even come back to teaching our children their own self-belief to draw the boundaries in order to, and they're knowing to verbalize these things. So, you know, straight away I was going head to head with certain things they wanted to do because of certain things had been missed because of COVID and all these things they wanted to do to Alira. And I'm like, no. You didn't want to do this to me when I was pregnant. Like, why are you doing this to my daughter now? Like, leave her alone. You know, and they wanted to know
she's fresh. She's great. She's perfect.
Don't touch her. And they wanted to come in, and they were, you know, it was quite astounding. And I'll never forget, I'm laying in this hospital bed. I've just birthed Delira. It's like maybe an hour after birthing her. And the midwives come in because they've realized all these, supposed problems, which they're not problems at all. They just want to potentially be it's preventative checks versus actual real things. And Lockie's sitting in the corner nursing her and like holding her in the corner, and I can still see it, like I'm laying there like tired, drinking some water, eating some food. Lockie's sitting there nursing his beautiful new baby girl, and these things start getting told what I have to do and what I have to say and blah blah blah, and I just let them talk. There was a whole room of them, and I just said, I literally will never forget it, I literally said to them, so let me tell you a little story. And I just told them everything that had happened to Hunter. And I told them the end result. And I said, so no, you're not touching my daughter. I said, if you feel a need to do something to me, we can talk about it. Don't touch her. And one of the midwives' mouths was literally nearly on the ground at this point.
Love it.
And she was like, she didn't say anything because one of the bosses was there. But the next day she said, that was so empowering. And I was like, yeah, because she literally heard me roar. And it wasn't an anger. It was just no.
Just to know.
And
with that power, without power, no one questions it because they can't, because you actually create that energy that you create is just so big.
They left me alone. I didn't see them. They gave me my own room. I got certain nurses. And I swear to God, it was because they knew it didn't matter what they said or did.
We know her boundaries. And that's so beautiful as well, because you've just empowered someone else in that system to have a voice too, and to question and to use their own critical thinking and their knowing and their intuition and all the beautiful things that we've got.
Oh, yeah. And I know I shook her to her core. I could see it in her face. Beautiful. I could see it in her face, the poor darling. She was a young nurse, but she obviously needed to hear it because she took it on board, and she was obviously moved by it. So we had Alira perfectly. We went home, and the funny thing is we followed our intuition, and we couldn't have done a better thing because literally a week after Alira was born, Lockie's mum literally nearly passed away. She had a massive heart attack out of the blue and got airlifted, major heart surgery, put into an induced coma for a really prolonged amount of time. Like, I can't even remember how many weeks. It's meant to be like 5 days, and it was like in the weeks. We didn't know if she was going to live or die. She suffered from 2 strokes while she was in the induced coma, and she came out of it and she lived, and nothing was wrong. But we were close to her. We weren't now 6 hours away in Melbourne. So the fact that we were even closer there, she had got to spend 5 amazing days with us as a new family, which we'd never got, and it was so nice. So it was like we just needed to be there anyway. And then we got to spend, I think she lived for, I'd say 1.5 years after that, and then passed away in August last year. But we had then moved, because we've moved again to New South Wales now. Lockie hadn't lived back in that area since he was like 17. In hindsight, it was perfect. It was perfect. So
you followed your heart, you followed your intuition.
Correct.
You can't go wrong.
No, and so when we moved to Sydney, just really shortly, we moved to Sydney. Victoria was still in lockdowns. We always had planned to move back to New South Wales. Lockie and I actually both grew up in New South Wales. All of our families in Victoria, though. So we had, funnily enough, gone back to Victoria to have our children, which put us in the thick of COVID.
That was a great time.
Yeah, and it was so much fun. I just really wanted to be locked down again. Financially, we were starting to struggle because Lockie's in construction, and construction was still decent, but we just moved, we had another baby, job sites were getting cut down on staff. We were earning a lot less money because we were now living in the country. We never moved to the country, Victoria, to earn the money. You don't earn money in the country. It's different type of money, you know what I mean? And we knew we always wanted to end up in New South Wales again because that's just both where our hearts are. We started to really see for the first time the choices we were making as parents, that, kids weren't going to daycare. I was going to be a full-time stay-at-home mum. We needed to maximize earning capacity for Lockie's income. We knew we had all the contacts in Sydney because Lockie and I had lived here prior, and all that kind of stuff. And we knew certain things were happening in Victoria that weren't going to necessarily happen in New South Wales as harshly in a roundabout way. So,
looking after Victoria.
Yeah, so I was preempting all these things, and I had a 6-month-old and not even a 2-year-old. And I said to Lockie, you need to go to Sydney and you need to start working again there, and you need to find us a new home, and we will see you there in 3 months. I give you 3 months. You need to make sure the work's there. You need to make sure everything's working up there the way we need it to work. And we need to make sure this is the right choice. But there's a 3-month cap.
Go and do the recon? Go and do the recon in the area and see if
Literally,
it works for the family.
It was the hardest time of my life. A 6-month-old baby and not even 2-year-old son. Alira was a baby, so it was different. She only wants her mum. Hunter, it was horrible, but we knew that we had to do it for
a little bit of short-term
pain,
a long-term gain.
For our family. And the funny thing is, you always think your family is the most important thing and you do anything for them and all that stuff. But it's not until when you actually have to do the really hard things like solo parenting in order to try and get things better, again, for you as a family so you can keep on the path you're choosing, that you actually realize that nothing actually matters apart from family, like literally nothing. And I had that even stronger realization a couple of weeks ago when I had friends visiting from Melbourne, and they said to us, like, you've lived so many places, Sheree and Lockie, like, where's your ultimate place? Like, where's your favorite place you've ever lived? And I said, you know what? I said, you can live anywhere. You can actually live anywhere. And I said, I realized that when Lockie was in Sydney and we were still in Victoria, I said, all I know for myself is that I want my family to be together. It's all these really hard things we've done that have constantly, I suppose, your main original question, how did you get to this point, have constantly put these things into perspective for us to actually make us realize through some really hard, challenging times that, for ourselves, our children and our family, well, actually our family, because that is equally mine and Lockie's relationship, are important. So we can actually practice what we preach. And that is our family values and a home, a balanced home, conscientious home, not a perfect home, still a yelly mum. I yell at my kids. I've got to make that better. I will never call myself a gentle parent. I think you just set yourself up for, I personally feel like if I called myself a gentle parent, I would set myself up just to fail within 24 hours. You know what I mean? I try and parent on my children's level and get down to their level, but I'm still a human in this experience. So, there's only so many times you can say, Hunter, can you please pick up all the muesli you just actively threw over the floor, without losing your mind at the end of it. Yeah. Not an accident. It's like,
I guess where's it even told to us that for Sydney, this is all the undoing of all the programming as well. Like, who said we can't raise up, there's just so much to it.
I always say to the kids, am I a yelling mum? Do I yell too much? Because it feels like maybe I'm yelling in my head sometimes, you know what I mean? Where I'm oh, just do it. You know what I mean?
Yelled 5 times in your head and you just yelled once.
Get in the car. Like, seriously.
Love it.
Sorry, we're just trying to be real. We're just trying to be honest. We're not even trying to create change in the world. We're just trying to create a change in our family lineage, I suppose.
That's the key, though, is that if everyone, or not even everyone, even if we just got a percentage doing what you're doing and more consciously parenting and consciously thinking about decisions and actually, like you just said, practicing what you preach and putting family first, would live in a completely different world.
Yeah, and constantly reevaluating. This is the thing. If I hadn't reevaluated the way I'd seen my parenthood, we would be on a totally different path. If I hadn't reevaluated where I thought I would have my children, we'd be on a totally different path. If I wasn't flexible in the thought process of us moving again, I hate moving. It's such a big job. I hate it, and we have, people think like we've got like a box of things. We have a lot of things. We currently live in a 3-story home with 4 bedrooms and a massive front yard and a massive backyard and a big shed, and got a lot of stuff, right? We don't have like one book and a computer. So we've got a full house.
Collected some stuff.
We've got a big dog, and we've got things and a life and a home. So I think people also have this perception. Like once I think I remember one of his mates said something along the lines like, he just thought we had no things because he'd never been to our house for a long time. I'm like, what? Like,
Yeah, we just got our clothes that we're wearing, and the kids just got one outfit, and we just jumped in the car.
It's a huge task, you know what I mean? And we're also becoming a lot more conscientious in the fact that, like, we actively talk about, like we've just agreed to live in this house again for another 2 years plus, because we're very conscious about our children moving around too much now that they're getting older and they're noticing their environment more so, and they are building little communities and friendships, right? So we're really aware of that. So we don't know what comes next at this point in time. But what we have done is we've committed to the next couple of years. So there's the next 2 years. We don't need to know in 5 years, because who knows? I don't know.
You don't really need to know, because you keep putting family at the forefront, and that's all that you really do know. And the rest will just, the plans can.
It comes back to that trust. And that comes back to, people go, oh, that's so alien. Where do I get that trust from? That trust actually comes back, it comes from, I have taught myself with all the work I've done over the years to really tune into myself and really trust my intuition, my inner voice, my gut, the pros and cons. There's the logic in me, the writing of the list, the thinking through different scenarios, knowing that different scenarios are just they're all just what ifs, because I actually have no control of all these things. It really all comes back to that, just knowing it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
This deep knowing. And that is what we're trying to teach our children, which comes back to why we're making the choices we're making, to try and give them. If I had been taught those things in my chaotic world, I would have had a black and white life. No, I wouldn't have had the colourful life. I would have saved myself a lot of heartache and pain. But in saying that, I don't know.
Like, this is why I do what I'm doing, is because we're already healthy whole humans, right? We're born, like your kids were born like that. They've got the inner knowing, they've got the intuition, they've got it all. As we grow older, the systems around us beat it out of us. It's stripped away. So we've got to come.
It's just this repetitive, dull drum, isn't it?
Yeah, the programming, all of that. We disconnect from our intuition, our inner knowing, that beautiful voice in us. We disconnect from all of that. So we go through these years of heartache, trauma, tragedy, going off and doing, things that we didn't really need to do, because we've got to come back where you've come back to that beautiful space of where you started. Why do we even need to go through all of that havoc if we just stay healthy and whole?
Yeah, I think we actually do need to go.
You can still have experiences without with losing your inner knowing. Like, why would we ever lose that?
Inner knowing. So it's the pendulum. The pendulum will constantly swing, because that
experiences
is
and that though. But we lose our inner knowing,
right?
And depending on your parents, what age?
The center point, and teaching our children the center point to come back within. So there's going to be crazy stuff happening left, right, center. It's life, right? So that's the world around us. That's experiences around us. That's other people we invite into our life. Yeah. It's all those things that we can't control. And we're going to swing up and we're going to swing back and forth, because that's the nature of this human experience, right? It's this emotional human experience in this world. However, it's about coming back to the center point, and that's what it is. But I think ultimately that's what it is. We're never taught these things, are we?
That's it. I just want to keep that. Let's just keep it. If we keep it in the kids, we'll be sweet.
We all need the life experiences. We actually need to know the good and the bad.
That's the duality of living in this life.
Correct.
But why do we have to lose our inner knowing?
What the systems do, these systems we keep talking about, I think, first of all, they take us away from our truth and our inner knowing. And they also create a lot of drama internal drama and conflict that keep us away from that internal pendulum that is born in us, in every literal soul on this earth plane. And then it creates that autopilot to disable us from looking for what else it could be.
The fear stops you, so you just do what everyone else is doing.
Correct.
And then
people always say, oh, the system is broken, the system is broken. And I heard this amazing, she's a birth keeper as such, I suppose people call her these days. She lives in South America, and she said the system's not broken. She said the system is working perfectly.
They've got it working. Beautiful. They've done a great job.
Yeah,
they've done a
great job.
Now it's up to us to step out of it and be like, we're not partaking.
It's not broken. It was never broken. It was never intended to be broken. It isn't broken. We can't break it.
That's why we just create something new.
We just step out of it.
See ya.
Yeah, and that's
not partaking in that crap.
Yeah, and it's sad because I feel like when I say stuff like that, I really feel like so many people would take it so personally, you know, because I do look at, like, I've got two sister-in-laws that were health care professionals really high up, and you know, right? And why did they do those roles? They cared. That's the really sad thing. I look at my beautiful Anna, my beautiful friend Anna, who's like another sister to me, okay? I look at her. Why is she a teacher? Why did she become a teacher? Because she cared, and she's actually like so beyond incredible with children, right? These children gravitate to her. She literally is like, you know, if I was going to die tomorrow, God forbid, and I had no one else, and I needed to pick someone in this world who my children, like, it would be her.
Yeah.
Because she has that ability with children to connect, to nurture and love on such a deep level. And this is why all these school kids love her. You know what I mean? It drains her so much.
That's the beauty of the system of why it works so well, because it's able to attract beautiful people, because there's so many amazing people in the system.
Because I don't know anyone that's gone into these systems that actually don't want to create change and help people and nurture people. This is the trap. But they don't actually realise that the way it's set up, it's never going to actually do those things.
No.
You know?
And then once you're in there, unfortunately, because you're in there, you get indoctrinated into that system. Right. And then you don't know what you don't know because you're in it for so long.
Or you don't know how to get out of it.
Good intentions.
You don't know how to get out of it. You know what I mean?
Well, because it makes you reliant then on the paycheck and all of the other stuff that comes into this society. So we just got to create something better. Done with what exists. I'm done.
Yeah, well, I think I am too. But once again, I sit on that. I'm just like, yeah, well.
Oh, no, I'm done.
No, I'm not. But do you know what I mean? I think for my own sanity, it's that pros and cons again. Do you know what I mean? I go back and forth, I evaluate, I assess.
When you find out why these systems were set up, to me, maybe I'm extreme about it. People say I'm extreme. I get that all the time. But it's, if I know why the schooling system was set up, I know why the pharmaceutical system was set up. I know who set them up. I know what their intentions were. They were not for us. They were not.
They're never for the people.
It's not for the people. So that's it.
No, it wasn't for the people. And, I absolutely believe society is on the right path of, I only have to look at how much more independent people are. People are doing all these startups. People are, even if it's on social media, like, because I have a real love-hate space with social media. There's so many positives. It's so good. But I just think it can be so damaging to people that don't have that inner pendulum swing to get them back to their truth, right? So this is where that whole, like, keeping up with the Joneses, their self-worth is based on the life.
You're looking outside for recognition. You're looking outside.
To follow all that crap. So, I think we're on the right track in the regards to people are starting to go, especially after the last few years, I don't want to participate in things anymore where people actually get to choose what they think is best for me and my life. Because wasn't that a hoo-ha, right? Wasn't that a hoo-ha? Wow. Garlic, what do you know? What do you know? The garlic thing that's going on there, like, really? I remember my mum used to send me to school when I had a cough with a patch of garlic pinned into the inside of my shirt. We're not even wogs. My mum grew up next to wogs, but, that's what we did, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember it was like this apricot fabric she had like sewed into a pouch, and she used to put like garlic cloves in there and on my chest at night and stuff, right? Anyway,
Let's hope that's getting through to the masses. They're seeing it. They're seeing through the lies, through the deceit.
yeah, it's really sad, isn't it? It's really scary. And, you know, there are a million things, do not get me wrong, there are a million things that I look back on that I wish I could change with the early stages of me becoming a mother, right? For example, I remember getting pregnant with Hunter and going, oh, I need to get a GP because I don't have one. So never had a GP for like the last, what was I was 35. Wouldn't have had a GP since I was 20. 15 years I hadn't had a GP.
Yeah. And then you went into the system.
The GP, right? I remember going, why do I need a GP? But I was doing it, and I did it, and I did everything they told me to do. So there are all these things I would love that I wish I could change. I would love to change, but the reality of it is, if I hadn't been through all those things, I wouldn't be where I am now. So we can all sit back and think, oh, you know, you want to beat yourself up about all these past decisions and all these things. There's no point. All you can do, like in everyday life, is keep making decisions conscientiously, you know, making these choices for anything in your life, even the food you put in your mouth, and go, am I okay with this? Is this actually aligning with my core values? Is this what I'm actually really wanting to achieve in my life? Or, you know what, I'm really, really, really vigilant with all those things in my life. That's one thing I'm okay with if it just slides a little bit. And maybe at a later date, I can look at that. I'm focusing on this and we'll get better at that.
Yeah.
Comes back to the balance, you know what I mean? That constant assessment, which is exhausting.
At the moment it is, because we're sitting in that shift to a new way of doing things, a new way. It's going to get easier. The more that we have these conversations and more people come along, it's going to get easier.
More people that spill their guts on social media like myself.
That's it. That's it. The more people that share and that speak up courageously, like you're speaking up, you know, to your doctors, to, you know, you're finding your voice, using it, you're putting your family first and then actively doing it. You're practicing what you say you're going to do. That's changing the world. Like, we're changing the world as it goes now.
Just trying to positively impact my children. Why I have the option to, before they, like, you know, flip the bird,
who knows what's going to happen?
car and zoom off with their
Who knows what their souls are doing? They're just like,
They're going to do it. This is the reality. Not only are they going to do it, they're mine and Lachlan's children. So they're absolutely going to do this stuff. You know, It would be weird if they didn't. We would be like, you know, are they really ours?
They might be, though. You might be.
I know, right? But from what we're seeing at the moment, they're not going to be, you know, the tame ones. We're just trying our best as parents because we chose to be parents. We want to be parents. We want to change the future possibilities for themselves and for their children. I have no idea what that will look like. But from what I've experienced in my own life, my own upbringing, what Lachlan's experienced in that context, we both believe firmly that putting our family first, making conscientious choices for their health, how they're taught, teaching them flexibility, teaching them not to tick boxes, teach them to trust their inner compass, and lead by example.
Yeah, massive. That's got more weight than anything you say.
So when we're screaming at them and they're 16 years old about to, you know, jump out the window to get in that fast car, you know, that something might, like, the penny might drop and they go, oh shit, mum and dad were actually like really on something. Or when they've got a family of their own one day, if that's what they choose, you know, they'll go, oh, we won't hate mum anymore. She wasn't the way we thought she was. She was actually just really trying hard.
That was her trying hard. You know, they did the best they could from their upbringing. So it's kind of like.
Absolutely. Like, you know, if you look at my childhood, like, in a way, I really should be a statistic. Really, the reality of it is, okay, in a really polite way, I should be a statistic. And I'm not. My childhood was far from perfect. Far from it. My mother was the present one there. She still is. And she has her own demons to fight. What did she do that's potentially led all of her children to actually having a really good understanding of themselves and actually really consciously choose things in their life? Because we're actually all very similar in different ways. I believe she was always there, right? She might not have always wanted to be there, but she was.
Kept showing up.
She kept showing up when times were tough. We always knew we had a home, a roof over our head, food on the table. You know, that offer is still always there, you know.
It's the simple things. It really is the simple things, isn't it?
We did not have a lot and we had far from perfect, but there was love. Do you know what I mean?
Which is perfect.
Right? And it was a different type of thing. Like, it wasn't the mum and dad picture perfect, lots of money. You know, there was a lot of stuff that happened, but it was the consistency of mum. It was the consistency of mum's love. Do you know what I mean? So,
That's massive.
yeah, and I said that at the start. It comes down to love, doesn't it? Teaching our children to love themselves, teaching them to love everyone, you know, to really give people that compassion and that space to trust all that stuff.
While they, you know, there's marketing campaigns and there's lots of people that say that in within all systems that it is love, what you're saying, the fact is it's not taught and it's not shown. I should say shown more than taught. It's not shown. And so you can say whatever you want, but unless you're showing it, that's where we've come so far, because love is it.
Yeah, this is the last thing I'm going to say because Lockie's bringing me off the hook, so I'm going to have to go. But what I will say is it comes down to this word that Lockie and I have really pinpointed in these systems. Now, we really try not to look at these systems as evil. They're just systems that have been created and you get a choice whether to participate in them or not. We ultimately believe a lot of those systems have 100 million% been created to create disconnect within the family unit. So that's a really strong word we use. And so the opposite of that is obviously connect. And connect is love. So it really is about that human connection and that family unit connection and that community connection and all of those things to create that connect. Because when we become disconnected from ourselves, I hate to say it, what did we all become in COVID? Disconnected? Like, it was really awkward, right? To communicate with people face to face all of a sudden, and all these really disconnected things. There was a lot of divide, all these conflicting things, you know. And I hate referencing it because who wants to even talk about it? The reality of it is, I think it's sent a lot of people into a spin to kind of get to this next stage of human consciousness evolving. I think people really need to focus on staying connected within themselves and their family units. So when children leave their family units, they're connected to themselves and then they go back into that inner compass.
Beautiful. And you can leave it there. Words of wisdom, woman.